Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be looking at how to make soulfully kind of pads that we can use for liquidy style drum and bass or any kind of soulful liquid kind of music that you might make, whether it be house, garage, etc. Specifically today we're going to be looking at this in a drum and bass kind of way. So this is the sound we're going to be creating in today's video. So we're going to start by going to oscillator 1. In oscillator 1 we're going to select the patch granular upgrade. So we're going to use this wavetable in oscillator 1. What else do we need to do to this oscillator? We're going to leave this one on 0. So we're going to leave the pitch on 0, and we're also going to leave the tuning on 0, and we are going to bring down the phase to 0 so that we always trigger the sound from the same place. Okay, and we're going to change the voices. We're going to put 5 voices onto this sound, so we're going to add 5 here. We're going to play about with the percentage a bit, somewhere around here will do, 5%. Okay, so we got our oscillator 1 set up. We're going to just put this so that this one can go into filter 1 and filter 2, because in a bit we're going to set up the filters and we want this going through both. So we're going to set up 1 and 2. We're now going to set up oscillator 2. In oscillator 2 we are going to select another wavetable for this one. So in this one we're going to come in here and we're going to select, let's say this one here, Clicky Robot. Let's try this one. That will do. So we've got Clicky Robot. Let's now just change the pitch. So let's make the pitch of this one up 7. Okie dokie, so we've got this one on 7. We're not going to add any voices or anything to this one. We're going to put this one on 0 as well. The one thing we do want to do on this slightly as well is we want to change the wavetable position. Now it's vital the wavetable position is changed in the frames here. So if I move this slightly up here, you'll see that the wave starts changing. I'm going to put this somewhere in the middle, maybe round about here somewhere will do, roughly around there. Yeah, let's go around here somewhere in the middle, I reckon will be about right. So we'll leave that around here, somewhere in the middle. We might boost this one above slightly as well. Let's change this one slightly, so let's just add a little bit into there as well. Let's see how far can we take this one. Let's see, maybe up to around here somewhere, and about there. Okay, and then we're going to go to oscillator 3. In oscillator 3 we're going to switch it on. We're also going to select another wavetable in oscillator 3. So let's this time go for, let's check this one underneath, why not? Okay. In this one, we're also going to change the pitch. We're going to go up a whole octave in this one, so we're going to get this one up to 12. Okay, once we've got that set to 12, we then want to go to the phase and put this on 0 as well. And we're also going to change the wavetable position. So let's move this one like slightly over 0, somewhere around here, let's say, about there somewhere. Okay, that'll do, around about there. So now we've got these oscillators set up, what we're going to do is we're going to come down to the filters. So we're going to go to filter 1, and we're going to switch this on. So we switch filter 1 on. We're going to change this to a formant filter. So let's go to the formant, and let's choose the formant, the first one here. This one will do. Okay, we're going to leave this up the top in the middle. We're going to leave the resonance where it is, but we're going to bring down the cutoff a little bit. So let's bring down the cutoff to around about here somewhere. Okay, we'll start from around here. We're going to leave the mix all the way up. We're going to bring the peaks down a little bit, so let's bring the peaks just down a bit so it's a bit smoother to around here. Okay, at the moment we've just got oscillator 1 going into filter 1. So we've got oscillator 2 going into filter 2. We also want to change oscillator 3 actually, so that this one goes into filter 2 as well. In filter 2 we're going to select a slightly different filter for this one. So we're going to select a regular initialized filter for this one. We'll just leave it on the analog 12 dB. Okay, we're going to take down the resonance on here. Okay, and we're just going to bring it down a little bit to around about here somewhere. Okay, excellent stuff. We've got everything going through this now. We want to just switch on filter 1 as well, so that that goes through there. So now we've got oscillator 1 going to filter 1 and 2, and oscillator 2 and 3 going directly into filter 2. And the mix of filter 1 is also going into filter 2. So the next thing we want to do is we're just going to turn on key tracking as well for our filter 2. So we're going to turn that all the way up. So the key tracking is on. Okay, so now our filters are set up. What do we need to do next? Well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our envelope. In the envelope, we're going to just change a couple of little things. We're going to give it a little bit more attack to the sound, so we just get a little bit more attack, around about 18 seconds, something like that would do. Okay, we don't want to have any sustain, so we're going to turn the sustain off. Let's leave the decay more or less where it is. We might turn down a little bit. We're going to bring the hold up this time, so we're going to bring the hold up to around 3-4 o'clock, more or less around here somewhere. Okay, so once we've got the envelope sorted here, let's just turn up the release a tiny bit as well, a little bit of release up there. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to set up our filter, or our LFO, sorry, to our filter. So let's go to LFO1. We're going to use LFO1 to do this. Just to make it a bit more interesting, I'm actually going to select a preset from the filter. So let's go to this one here, staircase down. Let's use that one. Let's just bring these back a tiny bit so that they don't come exactly on. So we're just going to move these slightly off, so it just steps down a bit smoother. Okay. Bit something like this, and about here somewhere, and we'll do the same thing for the very last one. Okay, so you should end up with something that looks something like this. So this is just going to step down in the filter. So we're going to set it to 2/1 as well. So we want this to do it fairly slowly, but not too slowly. Everything else is going to stay the same in our LFO. We just need to map it now. So we're going to map this to the cutoff of filter 2 in this case. Okay, and we want this now to come down a bit. So we're just going to bring this down to around about here somewhere. So it comes from about here. Let's just have a listen very quickly. If we come in here and we look at the MIDI, I've drawn in a MIDI note, so if you want to, you can copy this chord I played in. It's just a triad chord from F down to D. Okay, so let's have a listen and see how this sounds at the moment. So you can see that the more I move this down, the less of the high end I get. So I'm going to leave this around here somewhere, so between these two knobs here. Let's say I'm happy with that. You can hear it all sounds a bit dry, but we've got the basic idea of our sound here. So the idea now is to add some effects. So we're going to go into the effects section and start to make this sound a little bit more interesting, give it a little bit more character. Okay, so now we're in the effects section. Let's add some effects. So let's start off with something, for example, like a flanger. So let's use a flanger here. Let's set the flanger to 1/1. So it's quite quick moving. Let's leave the offset where it is. The feedback, we'll turn the feedback down a tiny bit. So we just got a little bit of feedback, like 13%. The mix, we're going to turn the mix right down to about 11 o'clock. The next thing is the center, we're going to turn up to about 1 o'clock. Let's bring the depth down a bit, so we'll bring the depth down to about 9 o'clock. There we go. Excellent stuff. So let's say that's cool with the flanger. Let's now open up another effect. A nice effect to use on pads and things is always a phaser. Always gives you a nice little effect. So let's put this once again on, let's go 4/1 for this one, leave the offset against once it is. We'll also leave this over here in the center. Let's look at the feedback first of all. So the feedback, we're going to turn the feedback down a bit. So let's say around sort of 10 o'clock, just after 9 o'clock. The mix, let's put the mix on 12, right in the middle, about 50%. The center, we're going to leave where it is, and the depth, we're once again going to turn the depth right down. So let's turn the depth down to about like, let's say 8, 7 o'clock, something like that. So we just have the depth on a tiny bit. There we go. Excellent. The next thing we want, which is really going to help our sound, just to give it a bit more like character and warmth, is going to be the reverb. So the reverb we're going to add on here. We're going to take the lows down. So we want the lows to come down to around here. Okay, so we're going to have this, we can see the hertz range up here. I'd say around 150, 200, something like that. Let's say we'll bring that down to. So once we've set our low cut, so we're not getting any reverb on the lows, I was going to bring it up a little bit, so I can go all the way down, maybe it's around here somewhere, so we get a bit of warmth there. Let's go next to the mix. Let's have a look at the mix and turn the mix up a bit, maybe about 11 o'clock, we'll say, with the mix. Okay, the time also can go up a tiny bit, maybe to like 1 o'clock. Size, we'll leave the size the same and the delay the same. We'll leave the choruses on. Everything else can remain the same as it initially is. And the last effect that we're going to put on here, which we're going to actually move down here because we want this to be at the very end, just to take out any bottom end that we might have, is going to be an EQ. So we're going to select the EQ, we're going to cut the low end, we're going to have this cut off up a bit around here, around 200, again similar to what we did with the reverb. Everything else can remain the same. So we now should have a lot more interest to this sound. Let's play the sound and see where we are at with this sound now. Here we go. I'm going to turn this filter down a little bit more. I want a bit less top end. Okay, so we've now got quite a nice soulfully little pad. I'm just going to turn the volume up a little bit as well. So how am I going to do that? I'm just going to go to the top here and I'm going to turn this up here and I'm going to get it to a point where it's almost going into the red. I just want it to hit this sort of 0 line here. So let's just listen to it and make sure we can get a decent bit of volume. Excellent. Okay, so there we go. We got the basics of a very nice soulfully kind of pad. You can play around with the cutoff point, like I say, to make it smoother, get rid of some of the high end. You could play around with this formant as well. It's going to give you some slightly different vibes on the first sound. You could try maybe putting some of these oscillators through the formant filter as well before it goes into filter 2. So try doing some rerouting with some of those sounds. We could also make this sound slightly more interesting as well by going into the LFO. So let's switch the LFO that is controlling this filter, for example. Okay, so what we're going to do this time is we're going to use the trick that I showed you in one of my previous videos. We're going to turn this LFO off. So I'm just going to whack the delay all the way up on that LFO. I'm also going to change my MIDI because for this sound we're going to want the notes to be longer. So once again I'm using exactly the same notes you can see here, same chord, same triad from F to D. All the difference is here is that the notes are going all the way to the end of the bar, okay, or 2 bars. So therefore this one goes all the way towards the next note that comes in. So why do I want that like that? I want that like that because I'm going to come into LFO 2 now and I'm going to do a similar thing here. So what I'm going to do just to make this a bit easier, I'm going to select the same preset that I selected before. So I'm going to go to the staircase down. Here goes the computer, getting nice and slow. Okay, there we are. So we've got the staircase down, but I'm going to select the tool this time. And what I want to do is I want to draw in some steps. So I'm going to make this a little bit more sequency this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw one here. I'm going to turn the curve off as well. So if you have this curve here, it will make it smoother. If we turn this off, you can see the lines are a lot straighter, a lot more jagged. So I'm going to draw two like that. I'm going to make sure that I also set this to the same tempo that I had the other one. So remember, the other one was on 2 and 1. I'm going to leave it on trigger mode. I'm going to leave this around about where it was. And I'm going to bring this one down a little bit more. This one's going to be on 0. So that I get basically nothing, and I have a little gap here, and then I'm going to try and follow this pattern more or less back up so it ramps up, something like this. I think more or less like that. Okay, so now we got this set up, we got our pattern set up. We need to just map this to the cutoff, obviously, of LFO. So we're just going to drag that straight on and see what happens if we play this now. Let's find out. Let's press play. Okay, nice. Let's listen to that over some drums. So I have some drums in here that I've made before. So I'm just going to put these on as well. Let's hear it over some drums in context. So to a sort of drum and bass style. Let's see what we'd end up with. Okay guys, so thanks very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the content so far. This is how you can make a nice kind of soulful pad. Remember, it's all about experimentation. There are little changes you can make in order to change this sound. You could try different wavetables, play around with the different wavetables. Remember, the filter adds a lot to the brightness and the sort of tonality of the sound. Try different types of formant filters, maybe try comb filters. Comb filters are really nice to play with to get some interesting sounds in Vital and any synth that you might use. Play around with the LFOs that control these things as well, and play around with the effects as well. You could always add lots more macros to this sound to make it more washy, to change the effect styles. You could play around with the tuning as well. The tuning that I have here is one option. Using different tunings on the octaves, and the different oscillators will give you different types of chord sounds. Okay, so if we play one sound, we end up getting things like this. So if we were to change, for example, this one, and we put this on, for example, 3. You see we get a nice kind of different style chord. So there we go guys, a few extra tips for you. Have a play, see what you can come up with. The idea is to try and use your imagination, use your creativity, see what ideas you can come up with. We don't want to necessarily copy exactly what I've done the same, but use the principles of what I've showed you here to come up with nice pads. The effects that I've used, like I say, the chorus, the phaser, these are nice effects for pads. This is kind of more of a quick pad. You could play around with the envelope, start point to make it come in slightly slower, etc. But anyway guys, like I say, there's just a few more tips there, so thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to help me create more content for you guys. Please comment in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to cover. I do have lots more planned to show you and to share with you about music production and about sound design for music and for TV and film. So thanks very much for your time guys, thanks for watching, take care of yourself, and peace, see you next time.